preguntan, vos no me conocías, no, no, te tengo.
Я вічний скрип твоїх дверей. Знаю лише я одна, кожного своя ціна. Welcome to Ukraine.
We hear it was a difficult night in Ukraine. Let's go to Joseph Lindsley right now, who is in Lviv. Is that where you are right now, Joe?
Bob, yes, I've returned to Lviv. I took the night train last night from Kyiv through the hills of Galicia here to the western city of Lviv. And, you know, we've talked about before how peaceful the train is. You don't really have cell service. So I slept well. And then about an hour before I arrived in Lviv, about 4:30 this morning, I had a few moments of signal, and I could tell that something big and horrible had happened. I had reports of many explosions that had happened the preceding hours, and there were more missiles incoming. Then as I arrived in Lviv, in the underground passageways to the different train tracks, many people were huddled. As I entered into the beautiful grand entryway of the station, it was completely deserted. And I was taking a taxi through the fresh cobbled streets after a recent rainfall. There were some people sweeping the streets, so it was very calm. But the whole nation was gripped as to the still unfolding drama. And it seems, today, March 9th, is the birthday of Taras Shevchenko. He was a 19th century Ukrainian bard who really helped restore the Ukrainian language and culture. And so people are feeling the significance of this because today the Russians launched 81 missiles and drones, almost all types of weapons that they've ever sent to Ukraine. They launched during a period from about a 7-hour period. The alarms began to sound just before midnight, Wednesday night, with reports of Russian strategic bombers in the air. By 2 o'clock in the morning, there were the first reports of explosions, with the air defense seeming to work in central Ukraine. Then there were additional reports of unknown aerial objects spotted over the Sea of Azov, as well as 3 missile carriers in the Black Sea. At this point, about 3 o'clock in the morning, most of the country was awake, watching, and waiting for what might happen. And then for the next 5 hours, the Russians used a mixture of missiles and Iranian drones to hit Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. In the northern city of Zhytomyr, a fleet of Iranian Shahed or suicide drones attacked the city, causing a citywide water outage and significant electrical problems. Here in the Lviv region, the city itself was protected, but in Zolochiv, a residential house was hit, and the reports say that 5 people are dead. Perhaps this was the work, Ukrainian air defense tried to stop missiles from hitting Lviv. We don't know exactly what happened. The city of Odessa, not only infrastructure was hit, but also residential buildings, which is pretty unusual there. Also in the cities of Dnipro and Zaporizhia and Mykolaiv, infrastructure was hit. And then the city of Kharkiv, from which I reported to you all for the past month, the Russians shook that city very hard. Just last evening, in the early hours of the evening, the city turned on a lot of the street lights for the first time in a year. And so people were feeling very nice yesterday. And then just a few hours later, there were 15 rockets that hit the city and its suburbs. And in Kharkiv, because it's so close to Russia, there's only 1 minute between the launch of these missiles and the time they hit the city. So it's really hard to intercept that. And then in Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, where I was the past 2 days, energy infrastructure was hit. And then the Russians used the very scary, menacing Kinzhal missile, and that was successful. According to all reports, Ukrainians do not have the means to stop those missiles. Russia has a very limited supply, and the reports indicate that they sent 6 of those missiles to Ukraine last night. I think they can go faster than the speed of sound, and right now there is no capacity to stop those missiles, and that's why Ukrainians today are also calling, why they say that the one thing that could help stop that would be the Patriot missile system from the United States. At about 8 o'clock this morning, you had the all clear after 7 hours of everyone, of alert and attack. And then, as if that was not enough, at about 9:30 this morning, the Russians began shelling the city center of the recently liberated city of Kherson. 3 were killed and 2 were injured. And then, I think a major concern also at the moment, during these attacks through the night, the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, which is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, became de-energized due to Russian shelling. And so it's currently operating on generator power. There's enough fuel for 10 days. And if the power lines are not restored within 10 days, there's concern that this would affect the nuclear cooling and could cause a problem. In fact, today, Rafael Mariano Grossi, who's the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, said, "How can we sit here this morning and allow this to happen? This cannot go on. I am astonished by the complacency. What are we doing to prevent this from happening?"
It's so frightening, and you just can't let your guard down, even when you go through those periods of relative peace. Joseph, are the Russians still mainly targeting the civilian population and residential buildings? It sounds like it.
Yeah, it depends on the city. I mean, for example, in Kyiv, those Kinzhal missiles are, they have amazing maneuverability. That's why they're hard to shoot down. They can also be very precise. And so it seems that they did hit the intended infrastructure targets in Kyiv. But other weapons and other missiles are not so precise. And so if you look, for example, at a city like Kharkiv, it seems that the Russian tactic is more to terrorize the citizens. And to make people sort of leave and give up and go away. But as I saw from, the 30 days I just spent there, there's no, every one of these attacks only increases people's resolve to stay there and to keep holding firm. But it really does depend. And then, of course, you have the other piece of it is that as Ukrainians are, and especially today, it was difficult because so many different types of weapons were coming into Ukrainian territory. And, the air defense, a lot of that is powered by human intelligence. So just think of the stress of everyone working to keep Ukraine safe, as safe as possible during the night and morning hours. But, you have to shoot some of these missiles down over Ukrainian territory, which, to mitigate worse damage, but that does cause problems, of course.
We talked about an area not too far from you there, Georgia, and I know you have an update on what happened there last night.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was actually sitting at a Georgian restaurant in Kyiv last night in honor of my Georgian friends, and I was getting updates on the protest rallies. The Georgian people were in Tbilisi, the capital. They were waving Georgian flags, American flags, and Ukrainian flags. They were singing the Ukrainian national anthem in addition to their own anthem. And then they began to shout no to the Russian law. The ruling party in the parliament was trying to push a law that would restrict free speech and free press and civil society. And so, chanting no to the Russian law, the protesters tried to storm the parliament. Meanwhile, the Georgian president was in New York for meetings with the UN and others. She sided with the protesters. And in the end, in sort of late night, the parliament, the ruling party, Georgian Dream, said that they would not keep pushing this so-called foreign agent law. But then they also said, the prime minister said they're going to wait for the emotional background to subside. So I spoke with my Georgian friends, and they said that they still plan tonight to gather in Tbilisi to keep protesting. One says, I do not trust the government. They just stepped back as it became very obvious that the entire nation is against them. And President Zelensky also offered words of support to the Georgian people. And really, in that rally, you saw that everyone sees this as sort of the same struggle against Soviet-minded tyranny, and that's why there's such solidarity between the Georgian people and the Ukrainians at this moment.
We hope and pray for better news tomorrow, Joseph. Please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?
Well, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?